All right, we are live. Let me know as you are entering the room if you can see and hear us. Okay, so I do see somebody in here. Please type a comment. Let us know if you can see and hear us. Okay. Give everyone a few minutes. Let's see if I can find the live on YouTube. Okay, I see it over here. You're having trouble streaming on Facebook? Okay, that's fine. Okay. All right, I still haven't seen any comments. I see a couple more people in the room. Please let us know if you can see and hear us. I'm just hoping that the comments, the StreamYard is a little tricky for me. Okay. And we will get started in about 2 minutes for those of you who are here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time. What I'm really enjoying is the graphic with the logo, with the smoke. Wow. Polish.
Yeah.
Polish.
Thank you so much. So I have an admin in the Philippines, and I just told her, I was like, hey, I want a background that has smoke and splashes and all this stuff. And this was her first iteration. I was like, whoa, that's exactly what I wanted.
She did a great job.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay, so I have us open over here. I have us open. Are we live? Okay. We will get started in 1 more minute. Yeah, it looks like there's some issues with it going into, oh, you know what? I think Facebook Meta changed their, they changed something about going live there, and that's the reason. Okay, so I think it should be there now. Do I just have to click a button? Okay, good. Angelita. Okay, perfect. Okay, so you guys are able to hear me. All right, so it is 10 a.m. and well, my time, Pacific time. We're at the top of the hour, and I'm excited to get started with this conversation. I mean, when I entered the cannabis industry, I'm not a cannabis consumer. It's never really done anything for me. It's just never been my thing, but I have experimented with different psychedelics. And so when I entered the cannabis industry and I kind of saw that the psychedelics industry was slowly following behind, that's what made me really excited to be able to learn the cannabis industry as well as enter into the psychedelic space and learn that one as well. And so as you guys know, being in this association, it's for cannabis accounting and tax professionals, but I do also want to sprinkle in discussions on the emerging psychedelics industry, because I feel like it's going to come in rapidly. And so that's why I am happy to introduce to you guys our speaker for today, Los Arias. I'm practicing my Spanish. I'm sorry. But yes, our conversation today is from jungle hallucinations to boardroom decisions. And I feel like they definitely go hand in hand, psychedelics, cannabis, and elevating businesses from within. And so happy to have you here. Los, please tell us a little bit about you and how you got here.
Oh, very kind of you. Thank you, Naomi, and thank you everyone for joining. It means a lot for you to show up, and I'm happy to, spend my time here with you as well. I on like a biographical level, Cuban Brazilian by ethnicity. Got a Cuban dad and a Brazilian mom. I grew up in South Florida, where I am today. I have lived in California for 16 years, but I happen to be in Florida this week. And my personal journey with plant medicine at large started quite personally. I had a transformative experience in my early 30s. I'm 45 now, where I got diagnosed with cancer. And I was able to, get introduced to these medicines in that capacity for their medicinal value. Cannabis was indeed the gateway for me, the gateway medicine. Notwithstanding all the misinformation that we were fed all these decades, I developed my relationship on that basis. I was not in sort of my younger days, any stereotypical, stoner stuff like that wasn't my journey. I was always kind of a straight laced kid, and I love to learn. I'm curious. And on the Brazilian side of my family, there's a long lineage of shamanism and working with some power plants, ayahuasca and others. So for me, it was, sort of a diverse introduction in this way. And in my early 30s, when I had this health challenge, that's when I, took my relationship to the next level, so to speak. And, that's the basis for me. And I really appreciate the theme here, this concept of how do you sync, quote unquote, jungle hallucinations, experiences of this kind, in these settings, to boardroom decisions, right? They feel in certain contexts, disparate. And in my experience, it's been anything but. And I think, if there's one thing to say about myself is everything that I try to do and invest my energy into, whether it's professionally, personally, what have you, it is informed by my personal healing journey. The amount of, love and connection to myself that I felt in that process, the relationship that I developed with, these plants, and in some instances as well as amphibian medicine modalities like combo, 5-MeO DMT. These are my friends, these are my partners. And in my experience, and many folks that I think have found these medicines as well, you carry that with you. So when I think of myself in a professional capacity, as a quote unquote chief executive officer, a co-founder, somebody who is responsible for other human beings, setting the direction for a company, trying to be a leader in the industry, all of these things, there's a direct nexus. I'm a better leader, a better person because of them. So, I've been in the cannabis industry for over a decade. I got started in Colorado years ago. I was fortunate enough to, find my way to, you know, relationship and, learning from a true pioneer in the Colorado industry, a gentleman named Norton Arbelayas, who founded a company called River Rock. And I was lucky enough to be able to learn, that very, very high level, professional grade approach to business, and to have the freedom to let my, heart also be involved, and, find a way to really align with employees and create a culture that people want to be a part of. That's been our secret sauce, I think, at Green Horizons. Our venture now in the Coachella Valley, it's about a $65 million project that we've been working on for about 8 years all in. In the summer issue of Marijuana Venture magazine, we'll be featured on the cover, There'll be a nice feature story. Be a great place for you to learn more if you're interested in sort of the real journey that it took here. I mentioned my background with, sort of a personal health transformation. Same thing happened with my co-founder and partner on that business. He's a cancer survivor. Cannabis was part of his journey. I mentioned, Northern Arbolleas, Colorado. We share that. My best friend in the world. When you have these experiences and you're able to bond on this level as human beings, anything is possible. You know, my partner and I on Green Horizons, his name is Michael Mead, another pioneer. You know, you could read about him in this article that I'm referencing, and also stuff that's online today. He beat leukemia. And when I met him, he was on the tail end of that. And then I got sick after. So, in leaning on him for guidance during that period and being able to have an open dialogue about the confluence of cannabis, psychedelics, etc., it led to all the business stuff. You know, we've been able to raise at Green Horizons 65 million in capital at a time when investing in cannabis pretty much came to a freeze.
Yeah.
The company's pre-revenue. I'm putting plants in the first 100,000 square feet of this million square foot structure this month. And the story that I alluded to in Marijuana Venture, it'll go into sort of this thesis we had, which was third mover, and timing the market at a very specific point, including, by the way, for all the tax people here, right? I'm a lawyer by training, but I have a great appreciation for tax. Schedule 3 will, of course, get rid of 280E. This was a purposeful calibration on our end as leaders, as business people that needed to put together a strategy that we then needed to go out and raise capital on. I posit to you, just from my own experience of it, but for my relationship with ayahuasca, 5-MeO-DMT combo, I personally would not have been able to contribute in the manner that I did to the business vision that we had. Because what those medicines taught me in part and continue to teach me, this is something that is a very regular part of my life, and I actively spend time facilitating these experiences for other people. That's how I choose to spend my personal time. What these medicines taught me is to be patient. They taught me what vision actually means. Not to be loud and, put energy out for the sake of oftentimes validation that comes through so much. Everyone's yearning for attention these days. And I think, a lot of the ills of society come from this place of ultimately not feeling love from within. But if you can solve for that, and I think these medicines, psychedelics, cannabis, in their proper stewardship, anything could be abused. But when they're harnessed with intention and they help to beget community, you then get to a place where the magic could happen. And that's literally my story. Like, nothing was easy for me, man. Nothing. I grinded through this. It required endurance, perseverance, passion, authenticity, vulnerability. It's another thing that the medicine has taught me. Know when to ask for help and to be okay with that. There's a relationship to be had there. And it's made all the difference. And, my professional obsession now is Green Horizons. I mentioned, it's a large project. We're bringing on the first 100,000 square feet of, a lot of innovative technology in commercial agriculture. With all humility imbued, we really did this thing right. And, our kind of thesis is the turtle wins the race, which is kind of my thesis for life. I like to take my time. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I feel like I have my own, vision of how I like to do things. I try to rally people and I try to encourage that in them. Tell me how you want to work. And that's also another thing that psychedelics taught me how to do. Listen. We could listen even when we speak, right? When we really peer into this dynamic of we remove the ego and there's a genuine conversation happening, that's really the secret sauce. So that's a very long-winded but hopefully fun answer, to a very thoughtful question. And that's how I started. That's where I'm at today. And but for psychedelics, I promise you that I wouldn't be here with you in this moment. I'm convinced of that.
Thank you so much. Wow. So that response answered a lot of questions I had and brought up other questions I didn't have. For those of you who are joining, if there's any things that Los mentioned that you don't understand, I know he touched on shamanism, and then different types of psychedelics, combo, 5-MeO, DMT. Just let us know if you want him to expand on any of those things. But I would like to know, I guess one of my first questions is, what exactly do you guys do at Green Horizons? If you could just elaborate on what you guys are.
Thank you so much. At our core, we are cultivators. We developed, designed, and built a consolidated campus in the city of Coachella, California. It is a 1 million square foot campus of entitled real estate. The real estate acquisition piece of that, which was spearheaded by my partner, Michael Mead, who I mentioned before, that started about 8 years ago. And we are now debuting the first 100,000 square foot structure, which is a state-of-the-art mixed light cultivation facility. We believe it's the future of cultivation in California, and I think cannabis at large from really a mid to long-term perspective. It's the predicate foundation on that side of things, Naomi and everyone, is disruptive low cogs. There's some very specific reasons why we chose the city of Coachella, and I'm happy to enumerate some of them. But at a high level, that's sort of the undergird of the commercial agriculture piece. That first facility will produce about 30 to 35,000 pounds a year of cannabis, and that pencils nicely, so it's a run rate of about gross rev 30 to 40 million a year from that phase one. We have 9 phases behind that. We own the real estate, and that's a big part of our strategy, being able to judiciously grow and expand. Obviously, the market in recent years has been beleaguered, right? It didn't make sense to really do much but survive. And in our case, it was just be patient. And what we did, and I'll go into this, it feels appropriate given your question, Naomi, our third mover advantage was in part predicated on the expiration of the provisional licenses that California issued as part of rolling out their program in 2017. They gave operators 5 years to get compliant with CEQA, the Environmental and Quality Assurance Act, which it got some high standards. It's expensive and it takes time. And our thesis was most people aren't going to get around to this. And when they do, we saw where the industry was headed, we thought, and sure enough, there was a commoditization effect and a downward pressure. People couldn't afford it. And a lot of people didn't renew. And what happened? 30, 40 million square feet of canopy came offline in California, right at the sunsetting of those provisionals. So what we did, and we made that bet, we synced and calibrated the timeline of the construction to come online in this very specific moment in the market. And part of that, so that's the intrastate, right? That's the state analysis. The federal overhang, election year.
Right. Yeah.
Political issue. So there was a timing interplay, and the attorney in me can't help but appreciate the arbitrage between state and federal law. And the strategy that we can formulate from that. So that was the thinking. It was more just like, we have a vision. We can afford to kind of get there. It did require us to raise a lot of capital, and that's not easy. And it ultimately comes down to being able to tell a good story, having a very good project, with humility imbued. Anyone who's ever been in our data room, there isn't anything in there. It's all in there, right? There's anything that's not in there. And the other part of our equation is just like a complete commitment from the co-founders. Like whatever hair I have left, there isn't a single hair that isn't leveraged to make this happen. So if Green Horizons doesn't work, and this is part of my messaging to investors, I'm losing money right next to you. So is right. So, and this is the vibe. This is what we're doing. And people, they respond to that. That's not something that they're used to hearing. So
Right.
that was also part of our, secret sauce. And then, we were able to be fortunate enough to, broker a partnership and an alliance with Tommy Hilfiger and Star Branding Entertainment, and tell a compelling story about sort of segging a large scale infrastructure to a compelling CPG strategy. A lot of people have told that story, man, right? But very few people have executed, maybe nobody. And our thing was, well, usually people go brand first. It's asset light, it's less expensive. The problem you run into, it's a double-edged sword. If you're successful, that's great, but it's kind of not, because then you don't have the infrastructure to support the growth, and then you fall off on consistency. Happened to a lot of brands, California and all over, particularly Cali, though. So we said we're going to go the other way. We're going to build the building. We're going to control the infrastructure. We're going to figure out the commercial agriculture piece. We're going to time the market. And then we'll create a sort of corollary nexus to CPG. And part of that for us was, well, 280E still is here. How else can you speak to consumers, right? We can't advertise and do things that a lot of other folks can do. Fashion, apparel. It's a very organic, sort of, right, piece to the, culture of consuming cannabis. People consume apparel and cannabis, I think, in a very similar way. Oftentimes it's very trend driven. It's culture. It's sent right. And, so we saw that, and obviously any opportunity to work with somebody like Tommy is huge, just to
That's
be able
amazing.
just to be able to learn,
Congratulations.
thank you. Just to be able to learn. I'm a sponge. I like to learn and have fun. And, I don't know anything. That's another thing that ayahuasca taught me. I know nothing. And oh man, it's so much fun. It's so much fun to know, right? Man,
Yeah.
I wish I would have figured that out a long time ago.
Right. So we do have a question from the audience. Scott Drill is asking if you can expand on shamanism.
Scott, you and I are friends, man. I can feel it. Thank you. Well, shamanism is a broad term, and I think to me what it means and what feels aligned in response to your question just here intuitively, it's there is a rich history of the ritualistic use of medicines that have been available for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? Plants like ayahuasca and such. And there are cultures and places around this world where curanderos, medicine men, shamans, right? They're all sort of different terms for the same thing, the same connotation of sorts, right? These are people, a shaman is somebody who has been trained in these arts, oftentimes it's generations. And as part of like my own healing journey, when I was sick, I made my way, which is a whole nother story, but I made my way to Peru and Brazil and Costa Rica, in these different places. And it was just amazing to absorb Colombia. They all have a different, sort of slant to the same thing. And at the core, it's musical. Oftentimes these sort of ceremonial, gatherings of sorts, there's singing involved. And sort of a deep belief in the power of earth to heal us in a way that's not only physical, because each of these medicines, and if you get scientific about it to some degree, there's places, of course, like the Beckley Foundation in Europe that have been doing amazing work for years in terms of research and showing what these different compounds do and such. But there's also very much a spiritual component. you experience things in a way that we don't ordinarily do in 3D walking life, right? And what I found to be so interesting, Scott, was just like being able to like sit with all of that and be like, wow, these limited thoughts I had about myself in the world and why we're here, the existential questions, almost like I was able to access that far better in sort of these experiences and these shamanic experiences where I got out of my mind and more into my heart and into my body. And I had what felt to me like profound revelations. And sort of the next piece of that in many of these shamanic lineages and practices is the most important, which is post the experience, the
Yeah.
integration piece, because just going and having a quote unquote psychedelic, shamanic, spiritual experience oftentimes is not enough. The real work, it's like that's what gets you going, sort of shows you the way. The trick is to start trying to apply that to your daily life in all the ways. And that could be tricky, but it's also fun. And what I have found in a lot of these communities, these sort of shamanic communities, is a real tribe element in a good way. It's tribal in the best sense of that term, and there's a real nurturing and support of each other. And as people get more vulnerable, they get more connected, and that of course makes us all stronger. And there's just this wonderful, beautiful, mutually just like, right, it's just, this is a vibe. And I found that in these experiences and with these people. So, I hope that touches on some points of your curiosity. Something that I always like to offer, Scott, Naomi, and anyone who's here, you could email me. My email is los, just like my name on the screen, LOS at greenhorizons.io. That's my email address. And I offer that to people because I love to be a source of support, and whatever I can, I want to bring that vibe to the world. It's a personal commitment that I make. So thank you for letting me be who I am and what I'm trying to be. Um, I always loved how Mark Cuban used to say that. I used to email him and he would respond. It would take him a while sometimes, but I found that so inspiring. And I said, man, if I ever get to be a entrepreneur like this, man, I'm going to be like that guy. you know
Right.
I'm gonna be cool because, like, right, like, I don't know. So anyways, that's part of my intro. Email me if you have any more questions, man. I'll be happy to jam out with you.
Yeah, and I guess I just wanted to add a little bit because my experience with shamanism, I did a retreat in Peru at Temple of the Way of Light in Iquitos. And it was done by, they called them healers, but these are the traditional natural Amazonian people who have been grown and raised on this medicine, like from a baby. And it involved singing their traditional songs and helping to pull that energy, sing the energy into you and and energetically heal you and pull those things out of you. And I don't know how much longer that is going to be here because the people that I did with, they were getting up there in age, and their voice was going, and I'm not really sure if they have people coming behind them. But then when you transition it to the United States and well, this is the Western world, but when you transition it back to the United States, then we have people who like turn 16, 18, and 20 and decided, hey, I want to be a shaman. And then so we do have that. And what we're going to start seeing with the psychedelics becoming legalized in the United States are service centers where you have what would be traditional shamans, but they are there taking you in and out of this experience and helping to make sure that you're safe. And so I'm not sure how you feel, if the traditional shamanism is going away or if you're excited about what's to come. Like, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Naomi. I receive all of that and very thoughtful question. Well, on the topic of the traditional lineages continuing, there's always subsequent generations. They're really good at that. That's never, it's who they are. It's so ingrained. And to your point about from very young, I'll share this story. I spent time in Colombia with the Cofan tribe. It's on the border of Ecuador and Colombia. It's one of the founding, really ancestral tribes in that part of the world. And they were, in many ways, the gatekeepers of ayahuasca in that part of the South America for many years. I lived with them for like a couple months in like 2019 or 20 or something. And it was an incredible experience. I went with one of my best friends and actually my best friend. And we witnessed, there was a young boy, 6, 7 years old, and he had stolen something. Okay. And the punishment, air quotes, was they got him there. It's a tiny place. There aren't many of the, very small little village. And they put him in the center of the town. They made him drink a bunch of ayahuasca. And he went into the experience he had, and it was like frivolity in a way. He'll be fine. And they left him there, and he went through whatever experience they did. And, I was just like, wow. And I then saw that young man 2 days later running around happy. So I was just like, this is an eye opener to say the least. And then on the topic of it now, because it's present with me, the shamans that served us in those ceremonies with the Cofan tribe, Cofan, were Mayor was 87 and his older brother was like 96 ish. And they look better than all of us. I mean, they were okay, like, and they had the generations right behind them, the right they have. So it just like happens. It's so ingrained in their culture, so I don't think that's going anywhere. On the whole,
Okay.
like, people who were surfing a year ago and now they're a shaman today and that whole vibe. Look, it's that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's like well intentioned. Oftentimes it's just like people just don't know what they're doing or saying, and it's kind of cool now. It's kind of a thing to say that you're a shaman and that you go to Sarah, right? So like we're there, which is by the way great, right? That it's mainstreaming, but it does bring about just an urging of caution, right?
Mhm.
And set and setting, safety, the quality of the medicine. These medicines are very powerful. You do not want to find yourself in a situation with someone who's your caretaker who doesn't know what they're doing. No bueno, right? And you just don't want to. So, utilize our cognitive faculties and make informed decisions, right? And my recommendation would be that if someone feels called to this work, to be extra judicious about, who you're going to have this experience with. I'm a great resource. Email me. You tell me you want to go anywhere in South, you want to be in California, you tell me where you want to be. And chances are that I'll be able to give you some very credible referrals, and it'd be an honor to do so.
Awesome. Thank you. So we do have another question coming in from Bruce Anderson, and he's asking, how do you blend cannabis with psychedelics for your business?
Thank you, Bruce. I really appreciate the thoughtful question. So the way I approach it, I keep them completely separate. So Green Horizons is a cannabis company. We cultivate cannabis and we create cannabis products. My psychedelics interest, I'm one of the owners of Psychedelics Today, psychedelicstoday.com. And if you're not familiar, it's like an educational platform, and it teaches people all about psychedelics from, really, beginner level sort of entry point to also training people to be clinicians and the jurisdictions that are coming online today, right, as trained facilitators and such. And it runs that gamut. Joe Mora, the CEO there, is an incredible guy. Kyle Buller, they have such an incredible team. So I am proud to be associated with them, and I lend some of my time and whatever expertise I can there.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's see. Let's get into some of your. Okay, so what are some unique perspectives and skill sets that you bring to the table as a leader in both the legal and wellness spheres?
Oh, thank you. Well, I think perhaps we touched on a lot of the themes. Like I'm a human being. I approach people like people. I'm a real people person in that way, and I try to create an environment where people feel safe. I like to find out what it is that, makes them tick, and, what is their why, right? I take the time to ask these questions and to work with them. And oftentimes, surprise, surprise, employees, partners, et cetera, investors, um, they're attracted to like the whole plant medicine kind of everything ecosystem, the culture. Inevitably, we end up sharing experiences that go far beyond just doing business with each other, right? And if they say, "Hey, I have an interest in exploring this modality or whatnot," I'm there as a resource for them in the same way that I'm offering it now. So what ends up happening is, I think something that's different. I try to bring value to people's lives in a multi-dimensional way. I want to be a multi-hyphenate in that way, right? And when you connect with people like that are quote unquote working for you, with you, what have you, right? That are invested in you. You're invested in each other. So I think just having the presence of mind and the willingness to engage on that level with human beings, Naomi, is a differentiator for us at the company. That's something that we really strive to do.
Okay, awesome. Now we have Summer asking, what psychedelics research do you find the most exciting at the moment?
That's a very thoughtful question. I'm excited about 5-MeO DMT.
So
And
that's brand new to me. I hadn't even never heard of it prior to you.
yeah, and that is the Bufo alvarius toad, the Sonoran desert toad, not to be confused with combo, which is a venom extraction from the Amazonian monkey frog. But I'm most excited, Summer, about 5-MeO, and a little bit of additional background I can give is that, first off, we have it in our bodies endogenously. Everyone here right now in our pineal gland. And there are 2 points in our lives when the 5-MeO DMT is excreted in mass, and it consumes us: when we're born and when we die. So when people have a near death experience and they describe seeing the light, and they have sort of an out of body, right? You've heard a lot of this, I'm sure, different accounts. It's because 5-MeO DMT is being excreted. So somewhere, someone in these ancient traditions in Mexico, and there's some tribes that are very well known for carrying this medicine, the Yaquis and the Sedis, from that part of Mexico, Sonora Desert. Somebody figured out that if you extract the venom from the outer skin of the toad, it's like a milky white substance, and there's videos on YouTube. There's a humane way to do it. You could abuse anything, and there's a lot of, that's a whole nother conversation about the ethical considerations and such. And that's why I'm excited about the research with the synthetic, because it makes it sustainable. So just connecting that with a little bit of background. Thank you for absorbing. Somebody figured out that if you take that venom secretion and you ingest it via smoking, like a vaporizer or such, you have what is about in human time, like a 15-minute experience ish. In the experience itself, it could feel like forever. Time goes away, you enter non-duality. People in that space describe feeling, oneness with God, the universe. They know everything. Everything makes sense now. Complete peace, right? Complete dissolution of self into something else. And I have sat with that medicine many times. And if I had to pick one out of all the medicines, and I love them all, if I had to pick one, it would be 5-MeO DMT, because there is no other substance that can give you in that manner of efficiency. Many people refer to this jokingly as the lunchtime psychedelic. I don't recommend this, but if you wanted to, you could work in the morning during your lunch hour, go hang out with God for 15 minutes. I'm being silly. Come back. 5 minutes later, you drink a glass of water, you can operate a motor vehicle safely. There is no hangover effect. To be clear, I am not recommending that. I'm just being pointed about how quickly the body metabolizes the 5-MeO DMT, because it's in us. This isn't a foreign substance, right? So this is very important to understand, I think. And The best way to do it is to give yourself space, time, and setting, right? We always check those boxes, and there are certain contraindications and such, not for this time with ourselves today, but there's a proper intake, and not everybody is a candidate, right? Same thing for these other medicines, right? So that's always a caveat. But assuming somebody is fit to have this experience from a health perspective, etc., you have the experience, you come down, and then you do what's the magic word? Integrate. You want to really absorb that experience, and it is so powerful and so beautiful. And yeah, and the fact that they're researching it now in a synthetic capacity gives us an opportunity for that to be a sustainable mechanism. Right now, there was that show on Vice, Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, years ago. I don't know if you remember this, and he did a show on the toad in Sonora Desert. And what happened? The cartel got involved.
Mm.
That's how they get down, and they muddied up the supply. So there's been, and with, they're profiting from that, and they're not treating the toads ethically. These shamans, the Yaqui Indians and the Sedis, it is like a ceremony in itself. How the toads live underground 9 months out of the year, so they just come up during a certain season. And just the process of the love and the care that goes into communing with the animal, there's a whole thing there, and it's beautiful. What the
Mm.
cartel does and folks that are
Wow.
bad actors is the opposite, right? So this is what so when I saw this advent of research with 5-MeO DMT with the synthetics, I was like, this is great. This could be this could be part of the solution to being able to have this medicine reach people safely and in a way that, handles that other situation that I reference as best as we can.
Got it. Okay, that's interesting to me because I know, like, compo, don't you have to burn yourself? Like, it's a more harsh experience. And then with ayahuasca, you purge. And so it's a harsh experience. But this is something that's just like a 15-minute peaceful or 5-minute peaceful experience.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'd be 5 to 15 minutes. Sometimes people with 5-MeO DMT, and I'll touch on combo and Aya too. Um, there could be some purging in rare cases. There's oftentimes that people have, not a violent experience, or an experience that could be deemed in some ways challenging, right?
Yeah.
For people that are ready to really have that experience, and the trick is just to surrender and to trust. Now, you're right, and it takes a minute to get there in working with psychedelics, but when you get there, it's a bliss wave from minute one to minute whatever. It's
Nice.
beautiful. It's communion with God. Combo is the modality by which you skin. It is worth noting that not only, unlike DMT, which is the psychoactive element within ayahuasca, unlike 5-MeO DMT, unlike cannabis or psilocybin, combo is not a Schedule 1 substance. It's not a controlled substance. Okay, so you're able to do this legally, which is awesome. And there are organizations, great organizations, that actually go through licensing and accreditation protocols to train people how to apply this medicine. And there are very specific protocols for combo for a myriad of different things, ranging from autoimmune conditions, Lyme disease, herpes, HPV, things like this. Kind of an interesting anecdote, and we can talk about it more if you'd like. I met the Hilfiger family through helping Tommy's daughter, Allie, combat her very public journey with Lyme disease, which she wrote a book
Mm.
about called Bite Me, which is a New York Times bestseller, about how ravaging Lyme disease was for her. You know what
Mm.
helped her? Combo, ayahuasca. This was the genesis of that relationship. So, like, quite literally, my interest and devotion to plant medicine led to that partnership in my business life. Look what we just
Mm.
did. We connected and
Wow.
talking about at the top of the call. And my point to you and to myself in having this fun moment with you, there is no separation, which is the point of not only psychedelics, but this entire experience that I think we chose to come have as incarnated beings on earth, to learn that there is no separation while having to go through a multi-dimensional 3D reality where there is the only thing visible to our eye is separation. So there's a magic trick there. And when you enter states of non-duality, which 5-MeO DMT does better than anything, you can get there with these other medicines sometimes, but 5-MeO is the sure thing. You can't unsee that, right? You can't unsee it, and that's a good thing. And it informs everything that comes after it. So all of that tangent to come back, I'll finish the combo one. Thank you for receiving this. It's fun to share. Combo is applied over the skin. It is not a Schedule 1 substance. It is also not a psychedelic. It is far more physical. The venom from the Amazonian monkey frog in the combo, KAMBO, it breaches the intracellular wall and cleans you from the inside out. It is a very physical process. It is far more of a purgative than ayahuasca is. Oftentimes people don't purge on ayahuasca. They do, but not all the time. With combo, there is no other option. This
Violent. Yeah.
15, 20 minutes now, you could learn how to meditate to it. You can breathe through it. There's a way to spiritually connect to the experience. Absolutely. I posit to you, you can do anything for 20 minutes. And in return for the benefits, particularly if somebody is sick. But by the way, even if you're not, I would recommend combo. Why? In the indigenous, here we go back to the ancient traditions now, right? And how we connect it all. The warrior class, the hunters, they do combo before their evening hunts. You feel like a superhuman after you do combo, from your vision, your physicality, your endurance, your energy. The person who told me about combo, and there are, back to like the non-Schedule 1 reality of combo, there's many, many, many detailed protocols, white papers on Google Scholar, and this is out there on the efficacy of these peptides, the combo medicine with a myriad of different forms of cancer. When I had cancer, the person who had suggested that I do combo after doing some oral chemo was my oncologist. So like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What? You're telling me to do that? So I was lucky enough to find a doctor who's on the cutting edge of that thinking. And we bridged the two. I did some chemo and then I did some combo. Combo is what got me through more. That's what eviscerated my cancer. I do combo now, cancer-free, thank God. I do it on a monthly basis. Going.
Yeah.
So does my partner, Michael Mead, and a lot of my colleagues and investors, because like that's how you keep the bad stuff away. And I want that superhuman feeling. It makes me a better CEO.
Nice. And Summer's just asking if you have any resources of organizations that are doing the research.
I do. There's a great group out of Mexico, and I would be happy to, Naomi, I will put you in touch with these folks. And they have a retreat-esque kind of center as well in Mexico where they do this work. And what they have been doing is, as they're welcoming people and sort of through their own intake, they're capturing the data and doing sort of their own clinical trials in that way. So it's something, what I like about that very much is if someone is interested in having that experience, they can go and do that. And also the science is happening too. And I could probably find one or two other good resources with, reasonable inquiry on my end as to other organizations that are doing the same. My buddy Joe Moore at Psychedelics today will know for sure. But yeah, I'm happy to share that with Naomi, and she can transmit it to you, Summer, and whoever else is interested.
Awesome. And then we have another question from Bruce, but I'm going to preface this because somebody just sent me a text from AP News, and they just released an article like 20 minutes ago that the DEA is going to move to reclassify marijuana to Schedule 3. So I haven't read the article, so I'm not sure if what it says, if it says it's official or not. But the question from Bruce is, what are your thoughts about legalization of psychedelics? He feels like cannabis is not well accepted yet. So can it be pushed through to legalization? I feel like with it being rescheduled, that kind of shifts the answer to that question.
This is some real time stuff.
Yeah, I just dropped the link in there for anybody who wants to check it out.
Yeah, you got my attention in all kinds of ways, but what's more important than anything right now is Bruce's question. Thank you, Bruce. Very thoughtful question. The legalization of psychedelics is well underway. It always starts with decriminalization, and I love that you're seeing the lack of parallels between cannabis and psychedelics, and there's a lot to unpack there. But at a high level, how did cannabis, the journey begin? It decrim, and now you saw, you know, Colorado, Oregon, right, passing the measures that they have, promulgating the regulatory frameworks that they are. I don't love everything that's happening there, particularly in terms of data. My understanding is that at least with the early draft of the regs, and maybe this has evolved, my day-to-day focus is in cannabis, right? So like I'm not up to speed on the day-to-day on psychedelics as I am on the cannabis side, particularly in California. But my understanding, if you went to one of these clinics and you have a psilocybin journey, your data is something that they can use to share with a pharmaceutical company if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. So that didn't sit well with me, but hopefully that evolved. But to answer your question more broadly, that anecdote aside, it's happening, and the science will make it happen on the psychedelic side. These pubcos that have really pushed hard and invested and raised a ton of money to do all of these trials, they're doing it the right way. They're going through the FDA, right? And this process is going to do what it does. That is going to greatly inform. Plus, what Naomi just referenced, and the fact that it's real time is super rad. This shift, this glacial pace of cannabis federal legalization is finally taking its next step, which is a baby step, but kind of not really, right? A rescheduling is a big deal. Is it perfect? Is it a deschedule? No. And my whole position on this, and obviously within cannabis and psychedelics respectively, there's very passionate advocates on all sides of these issues. I'm more of a pragmatist. I try to never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Schedule 3 is a good thing. And particularly we're on this call for cannabis. We're on this call with, CPAs and tax professionals. You know what that's going to do for our cash flow. You know what that's going to do in terms of inviting, investment into the sector. This is a good thing. And, it's not perfect, but we can move on from that. And I think the psychedelic side in a lot of ways is the beneficiary. And you touched on this earlier, Naomi. Cannabis has led the way. It is the gateway. And, obviously a lot of, stops and starts and all the things. But again, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And public opinion has markedly shifted in the last even few years. People are okay with this. And they're recognizing that the sky doesn't fall when you put forth regulated frameworks for substances, cannabis, psychedelics, and otherwise, that have been used for millennia. And if we don't regulate it and tax it appropriately, people are going to use it anyway, right? So it's like people have gotten over, I think, the hardest lift on the reefer madness, right? Like that part of our psyche, I think, has moved to the back part of our brain. And now we're in a place where there's a lot of us that see it very, very clearly, right? And not to be condescending to anybody else, but like we're on the right side of history, right? We're here. And then there's a lot of people that aren't quite there yet, right? And that's okay. We have to meet people where they are. And I think the best way to advance the narrative is to be the narrative, right? Like, let's take a cue from Gandhi. We're going to be the change in the world that we want to see. We're going to run responsible companies. We're going to pay our taxes. We're going to treat people. We're going to, do all the things that good actors do. And over time, it'll work out. So we'll get there with psychedelics. It's going to take some time, I think. And maybe this is relevant, maybe it's not. I think there's a lot of differences between what that'll ultimately look like for each sector. Cannabis is a lot easier to model. You grow plants, you manufacture products, you sell them. And I'm being, crass, but, there's obviously a lot more to it than that. But like, right, if you distill it down. Psychedelics, who knows? And the other part of that is psychedelics, if they're used appropriately, they don't, and this puts into my mind the question of the pharmaceutical model. They don't encourage it doesn't beget repeatability, right? If you have depression, or and you microdose mushrooms, and you should get to a point that you're okay. This is a lot
Mm,
oftentimes the experience that people have. So it's very different. So when I went to the MAPS conference in Denver, the last one that they did, the biggest takeaway that I had, and it was a super rad conference, was nobody knows what's going on. That was the takeaway. We don't know, and there's going to be these tensions, and we don't know what any of it means yet, but we know that we got to keep marching forward. That was the takeaway, right? Which is why me personally, as an investor and as an entrepreneur, I gravitated towards the Psychedelics Today model, because it's about education. What people need to do now and forever is learn. So we
right.
want to be responsible stewards of that. And for people that are coming, the way you avoid, you know, not everyone, but most people having a bad experience with a shaman or a practitioner that doesn't really know what they're doing, is to give people an alternative. So we have a training and certification program, our vital program, and we train people to do this in a certain way. And it's professional, and
Yeah.
we create that safety lane. So as more of that comes online, we'll get there, right, Bruce? We're gonna get there, brother. It's gonna take some time though, and that's okay.
Okay, awesome. And you briefly just touched on this, but you mentioned how psychedelics have helped you through your cancer treatment. But what are your thoughts and experiences with using psychedelics to help people through addiction and mental health issues and things like that?
Oh, I'd need a lot more of your time, but succinctly, it works. It works.
Yeah.
I mentioned in my personal time, I not only participate in these ceremonies myself for my own work, my own healing, but I help other people access them too. And I have helped people over the last 10 years from all walks of experience dealing with physical infirmities, depression, they lost their job, marital this, or relationship with it, whatever. You come to the medicine if you're a physical candidate, and what that means is we do an intake, right? And certain medications, if sometimes there needs to be if someone's on antidepressants, there needs to be a washout period in order
Mm,
to safely, right? So we my team takes it that in depth. Safety is number one.
right.
Once we clear that hurdle and we have set and setting and all of that dialed in, it's intention time, and people will set the intentions that they will. And
Hmm.
you'll go through the experience in this ultra safe, beautiful, professionally polished environment, whatever the medicine may be. Okay. And then on the other side is the integration. I have seen people have miraculous, transformative, like 180-degree changes. Like, it gets to the root of what's going on, and it requires work, effort, intention, and all the things, right? Like, you're going to have to do work. It is the opposite of the pharmaceutical model. There's no pill that's going to do it for you. We have to do, I feel the same way about fitness and Ozempic and all these things. And yeah, sure, there's some folks that can benefit from that, maybe very obese and whatnot, but this is bad stuff. No
Yeah.
diet, exercise, good attitude, your mental diet. What are you reading? What are you watching? Who are you talking to? What are your thoughts like? That's the frequency. We can control that. So anyways, that's my personal take on that. And I also feel it in the vein of like people having these experiences from one place to another with mental health and different things. I'll tell you one other story, if I may, about my sister, my younger sister Carolina. She was on a journey, and this is a common story for women in ayahuasca. She was on a journey to conceive with her husband,
Mm,
have children for 10 years. And they tried to, in vitro, this, the whole thing. They threw the kitchen sink at it. Nothing worked. And finally, she gave up and she was going to adopt. And I said, you should try ayahuasca. And Combo has a track record for this too. Set an intention to heal your womb. There's probably more going on beyond physical. There's probably even some generational lineage stuff. get to the bottom of it. I can't do that. I'm not like you. My sister had never so much as smoked a joint in her life. I was a little bit different, right? But she mustered up the courage and she did it. And she sat for one weekend at a church, sanctioned church place in Los Angeles, 2 nights, Friday and Saturday night. And they were challenging for her. She had big experiences, couldn't really understand what really happened, but she made it through. 2 months later, she was pregnant with her first child. That boy today is 7 years old, and his name, I get a little emotional, is Dominic Martinez.
Oh.
Then she had another kid, Lucas,
Oh.
who's 5. She went from being barren to popping out 2 kids who, for me, are like little aliens. They're so special. And this is a common thing. Like ayahuasca has a history of doing this and so does combo too, and in conjunction even better.
Right.
Mejor todavía. So these are the kinds of results that people have when they find the right people, the right vibe, the right intention, and they're willing to do the work. You got to do the work, man. If you're willing to do that, anything is possible.
Yeah, and so we only have 3 minutes, so I don't know if we'll be able to answer this last question, but I think it's an important one. And I also feel the same way. Like, what are your thoughts about this stuff becoming legal and then big pharma stepping in and making artificial products and completely destroying what the actual industry is?
Yeah, God bless. And I'll be very brief, and we can pick this up perhaps in another episode because this is a big convo, big topic. My advice to all of us is it's going to be what it's going to be. And ultimately, we're the consumer. We have cognitive liberty. We get to choose what we put in our bodies. There's ways to access the quote unquote organic, natural stuff today. Who cares what Big Pharma does? Let it play out. They're going to fight with each other. They're going to sue each other. And ultimately, I posit to you that having a pharmaceutical option will probably be a net positive because there's certain people, at least that are alive today and maybe even behind them, but certainly today, that will not consider anything but a white coat doctor, right? Like this, it's ingrained in us. We are programmed to such a point. And okay, so if they're going to access it in that way, I think, it's cracking the door open. It's better than nothing. And for us, maybe with the real OGs, right?
We go to the jungle.
We go to the jungle, or we go to some incredible place in Jamaica or Costa Rica or LA or something, right? Like email me and we'll figure it out. We'll have a group session on a weekend sometime. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I mean, you were so generous with your time, and it was just a lot of great information. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Right back at you. Thank you, everybody. I take me up on the email thing if you feel it so appropriate. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.